Welcome to this explainer. Today, we're going to examine ADDS availability and disaster recovery strategies. We will approach this material deliberately, establishing a firm understanding of how to maintain and recover your critical directory infrastructure without relying on unnecessary disruptions. You see, Active Directory Domain Services, or ADDS, is the absolute authentication backbone of your environment. Every sign-in, every group policy application, every Kerberos ticket, they all depend on a domain controller being reachable and consistent. Therefore, maintenance isn't simply about uptime. It's really about preserving the integrity of the directory itself. To understand the real-world stakes of our lesson today, I want you to picture this scenario. It's a Tuesday afternoon. Someone in human resources calls you in an absolute panic. They accidentally deleted a user account about 30 minutes ago, and because of the way the directory functions, that deletion has already replicated to every single domain controller in the forest. The user cannot sign in, their manager is escalating the situation rapidly, and the clock is ticking. This brings us to a critical question. What is the absolute fastest path to getting that account back? When faced with a crisis like this, or perhaps a tricky question on the AZ-800 exam, you must know precisely which recovery tool to deploy. Today, we're tackling exactly this kind of scenario to give you that concrete knowledge. Our agenda for this session follows a very clear escalation arc. First, availability foundations. Second, the Active Directory recycle bin. Third, system state and DSRM. And finally, choosing the right restore. Let's begin with Section 1, Availability Foundations. Before we can even discuss how to recover from a disaster, we first need to understand how Active Directory protects itself from a single point of failure during normal day-to-day operations. Domain controllers utilize what is known as a multi-master replication model. Think of this as a design where every writable domain controller holds a full read-write copy of the directory. When a change is made on one controller, that change automatically replicates out to all the other controllers. This means there is no single master database. They are all working together continuously. Now, because of this multi-master design, there are strict best practices you really must follow. You should never run an Active Directory site with just a single domain controller if it can be avoided. The minimum availability rules dictate at least 2 domain controllers per Active Directory site. This provides vital redundancy if one fails, and it allows you to spread the authentication loads during peak times. Think of a Monday morning when the entire office is trying to sign in within the exact same 15-minute window. Furthermore, for larger enterprises, the absolute floor for high availability is at least 2 domain controllers per geographical region. If a wide area network link goes down, local authentication simply must continue uninterrupted. Moving up our escalation arc, we arrive at Section 2, the Active Directory recycle bin. You see, availability protects you from a hardware failure, but it doesn't protect you from human error. When an accidental deletion does occur, this is the first, least disruptive recovering method you should reach for. Historically, recovering a deleted object meant actually taking a domain controller offline. But the Active Directory recycle bin solves this problem entirely. It is a feature that safely moves deleted objects into a deleted objects container. You can browse this container using the Active Directory Administrative Center, select the deleted user or group, and just restore it. The absolutely crucial point here is that it requires 0 domain controller downtime. There's no painful restart in safe mode. It's simply a matter of a few clicks. Of course, deleted objects don't remain in that container indefinitely. They persist for a specific duration known as the deleted object lifetime. For new Active Directory deployments, the default lifetime is 180 days. This 180-day window is quite generous, providing administrators ample time to notice a mistake, locate the missing object, and perform the recovery without disrupting the network. However, there is a critical limitation you must remember. The recycle bin is exclusively for deletions. It cannot roll back changes or modifications to existing objects. If an administrator accidentally alters a group membership, changes an important attribute, or edits a policy, the recycle bin cannot help you revert that change. For modifications or for deep directory corruption, we have to rely on heavier machinery. And that brings us to Section 3, System State and DSRM. When the recycle bin is insufficient, you must fall back on traditional backup and restore methods. To restore Active Directory, your backup cannot just be a standard file copy. It must include system state data. System state is a specialized backup capturing critical operating system files, server roles, the registry, and most importantly, the ADDS database itself. Please note this distinction carefully, as it frequently appears on exams. A regular, full server backup, designed for a full server recovery, does not support restoring just Active Directory. You must explicitly ensure your backup captures system state data. Performing the restore actually requires full access to the ADDS files on disk, which are tightly locked during normal operation. Therefore, you must follow an exact sequential progression. Step 1. You must boot the domain controller into Directory Services Restore Mode, or DSRM. Step 2. You sign in as administrator using the specific DSRM password you set when the server was first promoted. Step 3. From within DSRM, you launch Windows Server Backup and point it to your system state backup. And finally, Step 4. You run the restore and reboot the server normally. We now arrive at the climax of our lecture, Section 4, Choosing the Right Restore. Because the story doesn't end at the reboot. There are two distinct flavors of ADS restore, and selecting the correct one is the difference between fixing a problem and accidentally making it worse. There is a vital contrast between these two methods, non-authoritative restore versus authoritative restore. Let's break down precisely how each method behaves when it's introduced back into a multi-master replication environment. A non-authoritative restore is the default behavior. When you restore the database, you essentially roll that one single domain controller back in time to the exact moment of the backup. Once it boots, it contacts its replication partners and asks for every change that has happened since that date, effectively catching up via normal replication. This is ideal if a single domain controller's database becomes corrupted while the rest of the domain remains completely healthy. However, it cannot recover replicated deletions. If you restore an older database that contains a user who was recently deleted domain-wide, the restored controller will see that its partners have deleted the user. It will accept that update, and it will just delete the user all over again. It doesn't fight the domain, it simply catches up. And that is exactly why we have the authoritative restore. If a deletion is spread across the entire domain, you run the exact same restore process in DSRM. But before rebooting, the administrator deliberately marks specific rescued objects as authoritative. Doing this artificially bumps the version metadata of those objects. Consequently, when the server reboots and replication begins, the rest of the domain sees the rescued object as a newer authoritative version. It replicates outbound, forcing all the other controllers to overwrite their tombstones and accept that the object has finally returned. Let's review our cheat sheet matrix, summarizing everything we've covered today. You must meticulously match the failure scenario to the exact recovery tool. For a single deleted object, you utilize the recycle bin, which requires 0 downtime. For modifications to an existing object, you need a system state backup and a DSRM reboot. For a corrupted database on a single controller, you perform a non-authoritative restore. And for a domain-wide deletion that has already replicated, you absolutely must execute an authoritative restore. Which brings us to our final thought. Have you mastered these decisions for when the next panicked call hits your desk? Understanding the critical differences between multi-master availability, 0 downtime recycle bin recoveries, and the strict technical split between non-authoritative and authoritative restores is what ensures you're prepared for any operational crisis. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. Keep this logic clear and you will be perfectly ready for the exam and, more importantly, the real world.